Love is supposed to bring out the best in us. But what happens when passion turns deadly? When two minds spiral into darkness together? Criminal couples like Bonnie and Clyde aren't just partners in life, but in crime. Their twisted bond fuels their worst impulses, feeding off each other's desires, fears, and violent fantasies. Is it love, control, or something far more sinister that turns two people into one terrifying force? I'm Marina. With me, I have my best friend Laura, and this is Grim.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hello, Nigel here. As an owl, I love to be awake all night, but allergy sufferers like you probably don't feel the same. So take Xyzal at night to relieve allergies while you sleep. Then wake up fully refreshed for a more productive day. Xyzal works fast and offers 24-hour continuous relief from sneezing, runny nose, itchy watery eyes, and itchy nose and throat, so you can enjoy doing the things you love all day long. Be wise all. Take Xyzal at night. Use as directed. Starts working in 45 minutes.
You know, Marina and I sit here and chat a little bit like off before we start recording. And then sometimes we start recording and I'm like surprised by the violence because we're just having like a normal conversation. I'm like, oh shit, this is about murder.
I'm like, how was work today? They were stabbed 87 times.
Yeah. So, you know, just I'm remembering why we're here.
But actually, I don't need to ask you how work was today because I saw you there and then I talked to you about it on the way home and then I talked to you like an hour ago and now we're talking now.
Yeah,
so.
we chat occasionally.
We do. We know some things. So today on our crime podcast, we're talking about the criminal couple Alton Coleman and Debra Brown.
Okay.
For this case, I pulled 99% of my information from the various court documents involved across multiple states. I love a good court document, man.
I read or am reading court documents for my next case.
I love them. Yeah. I love an appeal. I love an arrest warrant.
I'm reading an appeal.
I love them.
It's not, I can follow it. The sections make sense to me because it like is it's like autopsy allowed or not. It's like very layman's terms on that. So I can do that.
There was probably like thousands of pages of appellate documents and I didn't read all of them. I took the stuff I wanted.
Mine was like 20 pages.
This would be
approachable.
This would be an 8-part on the various appellate arguments.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah, that's not this podcast. I also watched the episode on Alton Coleman and Debra Brown from the TV series Born to Kill, Evil Class.
I like it.
Not to be confused with the series Born to Kill.
Kind class.
Okay, and before we get into it, we have a few Patreon shout-outs. Okay, and before anybody gets sad if their name is not heard, we're a little off on our recording schedule, so if your name is not said, you're probably coming up on a future episode.
Yes, and it is because Marina is just being frivolous and taking vacations, and we had to work around her crazy schedule.
Just gallivanting around the country
for
for
a work
and
trip,
pleasure. Well,
one of them.
One is for work, one is for pleasure.
Yeah.
First up, we have Rachel.
Rachel,
we love
you're
the
Rachel.
best.
Thank you, Rachel.
I didn't write down a last initial. I don't think there was one.
Well,
no, it was just Rachel.
Rachel,
we love you so
the
much.
one and only
Monica W. Monica,
we love you so
Monica,
much.
We love
You're
you.
the best.
Natalie D.
Natalie.
We love you so much. At first I was like, is it Natalie or is it Nathalie? But I think it's Natalie.
We did Google it. Just so you know, we try really, really hard.
We do.
And it said, Google said Natalie. Actually, it said Natalie.
Natalie
Which
D.
felt
We love
wrong.
you so much.
We love you, though.
We know
love
how
you.
I'm bad with accents.
Accents.
Jamie C.
We love you so much.
We love you.
You're the best.
We love you,
Thank
Jamie.
you so
Thank
much.
you. Megan. Megan! We love you so much. Thank
One and only
you.
Megan, thank you.
Kristen N.
Kristen!
We love you so
love
much.
you, Kristen.
You're
Thank
the
you.
best. You're the best. And Brianna H.
Brianna H.
We love you so much.
We love you.
You're the
Woo,
best.
woo. That's the first woo woo I did.
Woo woo. We missed them.
Whoa.
I
woo.
could barely read my writing. I thought Brianna said Brahma, which is a chicken, in case anyone was wondering.
Oh, Brahma.
Oh, Brahma.
I made this exact joke about 10 minutes ago when she said the same thing.
I still like it.
I still think it's funny.
Okay.
All right.
Let's talk about murder.
God damn it. Okay.
Remember, you want to talk? Do you want to host
I guess
a
that's
podcast?
why. Yeah, I guess.
You think about it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're starting with Alton Coleman, who's the dominant force in this story. Alton was born on November 6th, 1955, with the deck stacked against him. His mother, a drug-addicted sex worker, not only neglected her prenatal care and continued to use drugs throughout her pregnancy,
Oh, no.
but in a shocking act of abandonment, she threw him in a garbage can when he was an infant. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. That's like, not to make like a very off-color joke, but like Family Guy, it's like a
That's
prom night dumpster
exactly-
baby. I know.
exactly
That's because we're friends.
what it made me think of,
We're
but-
friends.
And that's, we cope through laughter. You all know this.
We do. And it's Family Guy was fucked up first, okay?
And
I
it-
didn't
yeah.
come up with the joke.
Yeah, you're not singing about it.
That's right.
Yep.
It's
Swinging the umbilical
It's
cord.
playing rent-free in my head, though, just so you know.
For sure.
His grandmother retrieved him and saved him from
my
the garbage
God.
can and took him in, but she proved just as unfit.
Oh, no.
Instead of providing stability, his grandmother dragged Alton into voodoo rituals, forcing him to kill animals and collect their body parts for her magic potions.
That took a left turn so quickly.
You weren't expecting that.
No, also that's like literally like how to make a serial killer is like encourage animal torture and
Yes.
and maybe create some fires. I think.
wasn't even thinking about that. Like if you could force, she was making a magic potion of a serial killer.
Yeah.
If you could force someone
Making
into
a
that,
murderer.
if you did all the bad things that
Yeah.
people have in their childhood.
Trifecta. Yeah.
She made Alton paranoid, telling him that he could only eat food prepared by her because their home was surrounded by enemies that wanted to poison them.
This is I don't know how many cases in a row we've done this where it's these either maternal figures or anybody is like just shaping these poor people by the control they have.
So mentally
And it's
unwell.
Insane. Yeah.
Yep.
Gosh.
The horrors didn't stop there. Alton's home, what should have been a safe haven, was instead a gathering place for disturbing group sexual activity involving both his mother and his grandmother. And it wasn't just vanilla activity. Alton was exposed to bestiality and pedophilia at a young age.
Yikes.
Like,
awful.
I feel really bad for
I
him
feel-
in this moment.
Yeah,
in this moment.
yeah, as usual.
School offered no escape. Alton was isolated and relentlessly bullied.
I'm sure.
He
yeah.
suffered from persistent bedwetting problems, so other kids would call him pissy and shitty.
That's awful. Also not very creative.
No.
And also, that is the trifecta, isn't it? Isn't it animal torture,
Oh.
bedwetting, and pyromania of some sort?
Yes, I think that those are, yeah.
Because I almost made a joke about bedwetting when we first talked about it. Yeah. Although I
Okay.
don't think we confirmed he set any fires, but I feel like with the voodoo and
I feel like
all
there's
that, she
probably fire
did.
involved with voodoo.
Yep.
I don't know, though. Haven't read that book. By ninth grade, he dropped out, turning to the streets of Waukegan, Illinois, where he survived as a pimp and drug hustler.
Well, yeah.
Given his upbringing, it's no surprise his life took such a dark turn.
Yeah.
Alton's career as a criminal took off in his teenage years. At 16, he was arrested for burglary and placed on probation until January 1974. Just over a year later, he was arrested again, this time for disorderly conduct after he trashed his mother's house in a fit of rage because she refused to buy him a $6 jacket.
Okay, but like, where do they get off charging? Like, where do they get off calling the police or calling anyone on him? The mother.
It might have
and-
been like neighbors.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, that really seems like you don't have a leg to stand on.
Yeah.
You know,
if it was disorderly conduct,
Yeah.
I feel like that's somebody else calling.
I'd be like, you first, actually.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's assess here.
Yeah.
His violence escalated quickly. On December 27th, 1973, at age 18, Alton and an accomplice, Leroy Charles Lockett, abducted Eleanor McIntyre at gunpoint.
Yikes.
They forced her into her own car and drove to Evanston, Illinois, where Alton raped her before stealing her car and $100. He was charged with attempted rape, kidnapping, and armed robbery, but took a plea deal, admitting only to the robbery. The other charges were dropped, and he was sentenced to 2 to 6 years and was paroled in June 1976.
Yikes.
Less than 3 months later, Alton struck again. On September 13th, 1976, 17-year-old Sherry Patterson was driving her coworker, Joy Edwards, home when they spotted Alton on the street. Joy, hoping to find her boyfriend, asked Sherry to pull over so she could speak to him. I don't know if the boyfriend was like friends with Alton or if it was like a street thing
Or like
where
a
she was like,
place
yeah,
that,
like maybe
have
she
you
would
seen
know.
so-and-so? Yeah.
Exactly.
It was also the 70s.
True.
You know?
Very true. Yep. Sherry agreed to give Alton a ride, and after dropping Joy off, he convinced Sherry to drive to a secluded area. Once there, he dragged her into an abandoned building and raped her. Alton was arrested the next day, but this time he walked free.
Really? Even with his previous record?
Despite the evidence, a jury acquitted him.
Really?
Really, true story. How he was acquitted remains a mystery, especially given his disturbing pattern of behavior. Just 5 days after his arrest for Sherry's rape, while in custody at Lake County Jail in Waukegan, Alton forced 3 fellow inmates aged 18 and 19 to engage in various sex acts, including anal and oral rape. He was convicted of battery and sentenced to 6 months.
And nobody's like, he doesn't seem like a good guy.
Right. Well,
You know?
a jury let him off.
That's insane.
He was like literally raping inmates while he was in jail for rape.
Yeah.
And he still somehow, I don't know. And he got off.
Yikes. I don't know. I wish that there was a way, not for this part where he was very guilty and it's very obvious, but when we talk about like the hitchhiking and like pulling over and talking to random people, I wish there was a way. I'm going to see if I can get these words out in a way that makes sense. For one to time travel, but like to a mental space, like perception. What I mean by that is I don't want to like literally go to that street in the 70s, but I wish I could imagine that perspective, because for us it's wild, insane. You would never stop and talk to someone, even let alone let somebody in your car.
I know,
but I wish you could I wish I could hear this story through a different perception or perspective rather.
Yes.
And anyway, that's what I'd like to invent, is a time travel machine like for your brain.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Maybe try to put thoughts together first before you invent.
It's highly
things
likely
with
I would invent something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's patented, by the way. Laura already submitted the patent for her brain time machine.
Listen, maybe I'll get comments that like, yeah, great idea.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Just indulge me. Thank you.
Okay, so going back to our story, use your brain time machine to put you back in time there. Incarceration did nothing to change Alton. In July 1980, Alton was arrested again for rape and assault. On July 11th, 22-year-old Dorothy Hawkins met him at a disco and later invited him to a picnic at the Great Lakes Naval Station, where she was stationed as a member of the U.S. Navy. During the picnic, she mentioned she was looking for an off-base apartment, and Alton offered to show her some options. Instead, he lured her to an industrial area where he sexually assaulted her before driving her back to the barracks. Dorothy later identified him in a photo lineup.
Wow.
Alton opted for another jury trial, and once again, he walked free. I don't know. I would love to pull those records, because I don't know what.
Yeah, like, does he have a really good lawyer? Is he really good at, or is the evidence really shitty? I mean, it could be that too.
It could be the evidence is shitty. This is 70s and 80s where like the he said, she said might not be enough.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, and they were
to turn the tide.
in the camp of like, oh, well, maybe she shouldn't have gotten
She
got in the
asked
car
for it.
with
Yeah, she
him,
asked for it.
which obviously
Exactly.
is not the case. So, but that's another example where I'm like, that would be insane to be like, yeah, this random guy I just met, why don't you just show me around an abandoned apartment? Also, this is probably why we all have these fears of like industrial places, because of stories like this.
I know.
That's why we're terrified.
Well, and they look spooky.
Yeah.
There's that too.
It's like our cover picture.
And they're haunted. Okay, that's right. I really want to go back there. For anybody that doesn't know this, that picture that's behind our Grimm logo for our album art is a photo that I took at Eastern State Penitentiary in Philly.
Yeah. It was cool because we were talking about like what we should do, and Marina's like, oh, I have this really creepy, sketchy picture, and we were like, sold.
It was
done.
It was
just
actually
perfect.
like foggy in there, and I licked the Liberty Bell on that trip as well.
Explains
It
a lot.
tasted like pennies.
Cigarettes.
So just over a year later, Alton was arrested again for unlawful restraint. 16-year-old Lisa Mann and 14-year-old Lisa Pfeiffer both runaways from a group home in Kenosha, Wisconsin, met Alton and his associate, Leonard Lynch. After stopping at a liquor store, the group went to Leonard's apartment, where Lisa later alleged that Leonard raped her while Lisa was in another room with Alton. Mm-hmm. Oh, I was like, there's two Lisas. I was like, wait, did I have that right?
No, yep,
okay.
I got it.
The case was ultimately dismissed for lack of probable cause.
See, that's what I think it was a combination of these poor girls, and I'm going to say girls because they were 16 and 14.
Yeah, no, those are like
but
kids,
even in the last
tiny children.
one, yeah, like they just, I mean, what evidence do they have? They probably
Nothing.
didn't have a rape kit. They probably, you just.
And it really was a different time, I think, in terms of evidence like that.
That's so sad.
That's why I'm reading it. I'm like, this is unfathomable.
Right.
And it's like, no, that was just the 70s and 80s.
It's, I guess, nice to see that things have changed. Not that people aren't shitty and still do those things, but at least we have a way to be more on top of it.
True. In July 1983, nearly 2 years later, Alton's half-sister, Terry, accused him of molesting her 8-year-old daughter, Melinda Snow. According to Melinda, during a visit in June, Alton, who's her uncle, kissed her and touched her inappropriately over her clothing while his girlfriend, Debra Brown, was present.
Oh, no.
The day before Terry confronted him, Melinda further revealed that Alton had entered the bathroom and digitally penetrated her.
Ugh. Gross.
Terry recalled seeing him run from the bathroom that day. When she confronted him, Alton flew into a rage, attempting to kick down her door. Melinda had a subsequent medical exam, but it didn't reveal any evidence of physical trauma. And although he was charged, the case charges were ultimately dismissed due to insufficient evidence.
Oh my God. Also, he's sick. Like, it was no surprise with the beginning that you told us, but just sick. I mean, it's not okay, obviously, for anyone, but just to go after a little kid.
And there was something, I didn't write it in my notes, but it lives in my head. That he... psychologists looked at him and they said that he was literally sexually attracted to anything, but that he was mostly sexually attracted to children because he considered them pure.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Just so fucked up. I mean, again, no surprise given what he went through as a kid, but still fucked up.
The deck was stacked against him from the start. About 6 months later, on February 26, 1984, Alton met Dorothea Thompson outside of Burger King as she waited to pick up her 14-year-old daughter, Shalendra, from work. During their conversation about job opportunities, Dorothea gave him her address and phone number. 2 days later, Alton showed up at her home where only Shalendra was present under the pretense of dropping off a job application. She let him out inside, and once alone, he held her at knife point and sexually assaulted her.
God.
After the assault, Alton forced Shalendra to write a chilling message in his journal. Al, I really enjoyed tonight, and we must do this again real soon. Teardrop love, Shalendra Thompson. P.S. Let this be our little secret.
Wait, who wrote, say that whole thing? Not the whole thing, but what?
Alton forced Shalendra to write that message in his journal.
Weird, as like a memento.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yep.
Ugh. He
was arrested for rape and arraigned on May 30th, 1984. Shortly after his arraignment, he fled.
Okay. All right. He's like, I can't get through another one, so better get out of here.
And unfortunately, many lives would have been saved had he been kept in custody following this charge.
Oh.
That moment when you realize your skincare is actually working. That's Rodan & Fields, the #1 female dermatologist-founded skincare brand in the U.S. Designed by 2 dermatologists who don't just know women's skin, they know how to formulate for it. Rodan & Fields, love what you see. Tap the banner or visit rodanandfields.com/Spotify to get your exclusive welcome offer.
Ladies, you'll end up shopping for your guy's deodorant, right? So try Degree's Original Cool Rush. You see, last year, Degree changed the formula, and men were mad. One guy even started a petition. So Degree admitted they messed up and brought the Original Cool Rush scent back. It's clean, crisp, and actually smells like someone you want to cuddle. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So toss one in your cart and find out why it's the best-selling men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory.
So at the end of April or beginning of May 1984, Alton Coleman was living in Waukegan, Illinois, which is about 16 miles south of Kenosha, Wisconsin, where Juanita Wheat lived. Alton introduced himself to Juanita as Robert Knight, producing identification bearing the same name. He told Juanita he lived just 2 blocks away, so Juanita invited him to dinner, thinking that they were neighbors. They had a good time, and Alton played with Juanita's children, 7-year-old Brandon and 9-year-old Vernita. Alton returned several days later and spent time again with Juanita, her children, and Juanita's cousin. Before long, Alton was making himself a little too comfortable. On May 29th, 1984, he walked uninvited into the neighbor's apartment where Juanita was visiting. Rather than raise suspicion, Juanita politely introduced him and agreed when he asked to take her when he asked to take her children to the local carnival.
Oh, no.
True to his word, he brought them back by 10:15 p.m. Then, as the night wound down, Alton made one final request. He asked if Vernita could accompany him to his apartment to pick up a stereo system. Since he claimed to live only a few blocks away, Juanita agreed, expecting her daughter back within minutes.
Well, and at this point, like, it's really... so her daughter to help, not Juanita.
Yes, the 9-year-old.
And at this point, like, she spent time with him. Maybe he's a little off, which in this day and age, again, we would like, I feel like everyone's flags are constantly, eyes are constantly open for stuff like this.
Yes.
But at that point, you're like not thinking about all these bad possibilities. And you're like, well, he's had dinner here.
He took him to the carnival. He brought him back. It was completely fine.
Yep, I can see. Oh, man. Oh, no.
The minutes ticked by with no sign of Alton and Vernita. By 10:45, Juanita and her neighbor went out to search for Vernita. An hour after that, she called the police. Meanwhile, Alton had taken Vernita to a Kenosha tavern called the 400 Club around 11:35 p.m. before calling a cab.
She's 9.
She's 9,
okay.
Yes. Alton told the cab driver that he wanted to go to Zion, Illinois to pick up a car and stereo, but then once they arrived, he changed his mind and asked to be taken back to Waukegan. Vernita slept most of the ride, which makes me really sad.
That makes me so sad.
Until they arrived at Slater's barbecue joint per Alton's request. The driver left the pair in the dark, and Vernita was never seen alive again.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's crazy. Everything you said up until this point has been his like record before he ever presumably killed someone.
Before he went, on a spree.
Wow.
Alton murdered Vernita in the early morning hours of May 30th, returned to his grandmother's residence in Waukegan, changed his clothes, and then attended the arraignment hearing on the Shalandra Thompson rape.
Stop. That's wild.
And that's when he fled. Like, this it's
God.
all happening like simultaneously.
Oh my God. Thank you for making that connection.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, timing wise, it got a little bit confusing.
Okay.
But yes, he murdered her, went to that arraignment, and then bounced.
Oh, so that definitely explains more why it wasn't just, this one he happened to. It's because he had that weighing on him. Okay.
Yep. And I just like can't imagine you murder someone and then go to court for rape and you're like,
things.
Not guilty.
Right.
Like, it's crazy to me. Juanita's mother held out hope for as long as she could that Vernita might still be alive, but that hope was extinguished on June 19th when her body was discovered in the bathroom of an abandoned building in Waukegan.
What a shitbag.
She had been strangled and still had a heavy cable around her torso and chest that wrapped up around her neck. She was also wearing a large button-up corduroy jacket backwards, which acted like a straitjacket.
Oh my God.
The coroner was unsure if she had been assaulted, but her underwear were on inside out backwards and were pulled halfway down her legs.
For sure. Without a doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
The abandoned building was located 2 blocks from Slater's barbecue, and investigators identified a fingerprint on the door of the bathroom belonging to Alton.
Wow. That's actually surprising because this was the mid-'80s, right? Wow. Surprising.
Juanita reviewed a lineup and identified Alton Coleman as Robert Knight, who was already known by authorities, especially because of his pending trial for rape. But by that time, Alton was in the wind. On May 31st, Alton had befriended another trusting individual in Waukegan, Robert Carpenter. Robert gave Alton a place to stay for the night, and as a thank you, Alton stole his car.
I thought you were going to say murdered him.
No.
Like, well, that's shitty
He
too.
survived, yes. Yep. Before we get into the rest of Alton's spree, I need to introduce you to his partner in crime, literally, Debra Brown. And now remember, Debra was present for one of those rapes.
Yep.
With the...
which is already red flags.
Yes, with his niece.
Yep.
So Deborah Brown was born in Chicago, Illinois in 1962. She was the fifth of 11 children. Woo. It's too many kids. From an early age, she struggled socially and endured a childhood filled with neglect and sexual abuse. Her father, plagued by severe mental illness and alcoholism, was violently abusive toward the children. At 12, Deborah moved to Waukegan, where she faced academic difficulties. Though some suspected she had an intellectual disability, she was never diagnosed. Isolated and awkward, she struggled to form connections, reinforcing her deep-seated fear of rejection. Despite her struggles, Deborah's teenage years were uneventful, but everything changed when, at 26, she met Alton Coleman. He swept her off her feet, and over the next 3 years, he manipulated her into complete submission.
And it's like a perfect recipe for that to happen.
100%.
It's not surprising at all.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. Desperate to please him, Deborah devoted herself entirely to his wants and desires. After moving in with Alton, she cut off contact with her family and surrendered control of her life to him.
Never good.
Nope. Whatever he wanted, she obeyed without hesitation, including helping him rape and murder.
Ugh.
So now that Deborah is by his side, on June 18th, 1984, 9-year-old Annie Hillard and her 7-year-old niece, which that was interesting to me, 9 and 7.
Oh, wait. Say that again. No, I am listening. I promise. That's like the third thing.
9-year-old Annie Hillard and her 7-year-old niece, Tamika Turks.
I guess that kind of
happens.
Yeah, because it like if she has an older brother or sister,
she may be like the very youngest child.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
No, it happens, but it just like you don't often see that. Okay. So Annie and Tamika, they were headed into town in Gary, Indiana. The girls had a sleepover the night before, and they were now going together to get a hot dog from a local stand, followed by a trip to the candy store. On their way back to Tamika's house, the girls were approached by Alton and Debra. Alton asked the girls if they wanted to see some clothing. I think, like, to pick new clothes. Annie and Tamika were initially agreeable. Alton said he would catch back up with them and told Annie and Tamika to follow Debra. The girls proceeded to walk with Debra for about 1.4 miles.
That's so much.
So long.
Yeah.
Would have taken them around 40 minutes, they estimated. Tamika commented to Annie during the walk that they shouldn't have agreed to go with these people, but they sauntered on. Once they were in a wooded, secluded area, Alton met back up with them. Alton told them that he wanted to play a little game. I know, Finney's upset about it too. Yeah. Alton took Tamika's shirt off and cut it into strips with a pocket knife. He used the strips to tie up her hands, legs, and the mouths of Annie and Tamika. Tamika began to cry, so Debra held her hand over Tamika's nose and mouth while Alton stomped on her stomach and chest. Alton and Debra then carried Tamika away and put her in the woods out of Annie's view, although Annie didn't think that Tamika was breathing. Annie was then untied and was forced to perform oral sex on Alton. Alton showed Annie a gun and threatened to kill her if she didn't comply. She was then forced to perform oral sex on Debra while Alton sexually assaulted her as well.
This poor sweet child who probably doesn't even know what any of that is
she's
either.
Only 9. Annie heard a loud moan from the bushes, and Debra commented that Tamika wasn't dead yet. Debra went over to check on Tamika, and when she returned to Annie, her and Alton choked her with their belts until she lost consciousness. When Annie came to, Alton and Debra were gone. She got to her feet and stumbled out of the woods. A young woman and her mother noticed Annie. They called her mother and called for an ambulance. Annie was brought to the hospital and examined. The doctors discovered cuts so deep in her vaginal area that her intestines were protruding into her vagina.
Oh my God. I didn't even know that was possible. That poor thing.
Don't know the logistics of that.
Oh
but
my
I'm
God.
Absolutely horrified. Tamika's body was discovered the next day on June 19th with the edge of a fitted sheet tied tightly around her neck. Her hands and her feet were still tied with strips of her own clothing.
God.
See, like, I don't feel bad for Alton's childhood anymore.
No,
you know,
I'm angry about it because it created this.
Right.
And I'm still also angry about him not being in jail.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, he's in jail. Well,
I mean at this before this,
yes. Okay,
to
I got
avoid
you.
this happening.
I got you. One day after the brutal murder of Tamika Turks and the attempted murder of Annie Hillard, Alton and Debra befriended Donna Williams, a 25-year-old in Gary, Indiana. They introduced themselves as Phil and Pam from Boston. Donna Williams was a devout Christian and spoke to the pair about joining her church. She had arrived at her church that evening around 6:40 to set up chairs, and she left about an hour later at 7:50 to pick up Alton and Debra, but she was never seen alive again.
I know.
A week later, on June 26th, Donna's car was found in Detroit, Michigan. Authorities found Alton's fingerprint on the glove compartment and a fake Indiana ID with Debra's face and the name Lisa Fisher. Donna's body was not found until July 11th in an abandoned building around a half mile from where her car was located. Donna had been strangled with a pantyhose, and her body was so badly decomposed that authorities couldn't determine if sexual assault had occurred.
Jeez.
Dramatic page turn. Less than 10 days later, on June 28th, 1984, the couple was back in action. Around 7 a.m., they entered the residence of 62-year-old Palmer Jones and 59-year-old Marge Jones. Alton was armed with a chair leg, and Debra had a handgun.
God.
I'd be like,
also, all over the place
I know.
on ages and everything. Also, Palmer and Marge are amazing names.
Palmer and Marge Jones.
Incredible.
I know.
But so a table leg?
A chair leg.
Sorry, a chair leg.
A chair leg. And I'd be like, you take the chair leg, I'll take the handgun. Thanks.
Jeez.
Yep. Alton and Debra left with $90 and the Joneses' car, but not until after they assaulted the couple. Palmer had 25 inches of lacerations left on his body and suffered from long-term dizziness from the assault.
Oh my God.
Marge,
brutal.
Yeah. Marge suffered a broken arm and needed 20 stitches. At least they used the chair leg and not the handgun.
I guess.
Okay.
But
I mean,
jeez.
going glass half full here.
Yeah.
Next, the couple targeted 55-year-old Mary Billups. She met Alton and Debra on a street corner in Detroit, Michigan. After talking to her for 45 minutes, Alton and Debra charmed Mary back to her house where they had dinner and spent the night, which thankfully for Mary was uneventful. Then
Really?
Laura's like, she's alive?
Yeah.
The next morning, the couple told Mary that they needed a ride, so Mary introduced them to 55-year-old Marion Gaston. It was then that the situation went south. Alton and Debra pulled knives on Mary and Marion. Alton then punched Mary in the face, knocking her unconscious. Alton got Mary and Marion into the basement where they tied them up with electric cords, gagged them with rags, and both were further beaten with a wrench by Alton.
God.
Then the Lovebirds stole Marion Gaston's car.
You weren't kidding about a spree. They were just
Literally, just
on
manic,
the loose, different IDs. Who knows where they were even getting IDs? I guess it probably wasn't that hard to do, but still just all over.
They may have had them already.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
think of that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, literally a spree. Jeez. And there's no rhyme or reason. They're just, it's almost like, was it the Night Stalker who there was really no rhyme or reason, no ages, everybody, nobody was safe.
Yeah. Ugh.
Especially the people that sleep with their windows open.
Which makes it really hard to nail down these people, except for the fingerprints. He keeps sleeping and they're like, oh, it is him.
They know exactly who it is. They just can't find him.
Jeez.
On July 6th, 1984, Alton and Debra made their way to Ohio, where they met Minister Ernie Jackson. By the way, they're all over states, too.
Yeah.
They're not even sticking around. Alton told Ernie that he was on leave from an army post in Germany, and Debra introduced herself as Doris Smith. Ernie was captivated by the couple like so many before him, and he invited the pair home for ribs at his house. While at Ernie's, they met 30-year-old Virginia Temple, who was at the home visiting Ernie's wife. Also, wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
Virginia caught Alton's attention, and he was able to get her address. Alton and Debra made their way to Virginia's home, where she lived with her 5 children, aged 10, 6, 5, 3, and 1.
Stop.
During the night or the early morning hours of July 7th, Alton and Debra murdered Virginia and raped and murdered her 10-year-old daughter, Rachel Temple. Alton and Debra left with Virginia's glasses, clothing, and jewelry. The other children woke the morning of July 7th and couldn't find Virginia or Rachel.
This is making my stomach turn.
It's awful. By the way, it's Rachelle. I don't know if that's Rachel or Rochelle. Rochelle. They called the Toledo police to report their missing mother and sister.
Oh my God.
Authorities arrived and searched the home, finding both Virginia and Rochelle in the crawl space beneath the residence.
The only silver lining to that is those poor children didn't find them.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my God, what sick fucks though. Like you're attacking children and like mothers
Disgusting.
and people. I mean, obviously, again, don't attack anyone, but good God.
Awful.
Oh, depraved.
Yep, both Virginia and Rochelle had been strangled and beaten. The coroner couldn't determine whether Virginia had been sexually assaulted, but conclusively concluded that Rochelle had been. The Department of Redundancy Department.
It was for sure. But really, of course he did.
Yes. Yep. And Rochelle had blood that was flowing from her vagina to her feet on her body. Alton and Debra wasted no time finding their next victim. They tucked their way into the home of 77-year-old Frank Duvendak, who was the former assistant superintendent of Toledo schools in Ohio. Mm-hmm. Once inside, Debra pulled out a handgun and handed it to Alton. The couple forced Frank upstairs where his wife Dorothy was located. They handcuffed Frank and tied Dorothy's hands with electrical cords. Debra then stuffed their mouths with tissues before the pair stole $200, a hat, and the Duvendak's car.
That's it.
Also, no rhyme or reason to who lives, who dies, who's sexually assaulted, who's not.
Like, all the way from just like honestly pretty vanilla robbery to disgusting murder. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
I know.
I don't like it.
I'm sorry. I mean,
I was thinking like how, as somebody who is generally pretty empathetic, I really try to put myself in people's places. Why am I on a true crime podcast?
I don't know.
Like why? Because I'm just imagining this poor man knowing they're going upstairs to his wife and being able to do absolutely nothing to protect her, and then like not knowing, are they going to kill her or rape her or whatever?
Right.
And just feeling helpless. I don't like it.
I'm really sorry. I don't know.
Are you though? Because
I don't know if you know
keep
that
talking about children being murdered.
I don't know if you know that you co-host a true crime podcast. This is coming from you who just did the Shoemaker case, which like ruined everyone's lives.
I just, it's different.
You just ruined everyone's lives and you're yelling at me.
There's just like one, maybe like a couple little murders in there.
Couple. Yeah. I already blacked it out of my mind. I couldn't tell you a single fact about that case.
The only thing I can remember is the little bird.
Yeah.
Well, the little bird.
I forgot all about that until you said it.
You're welcome.
It's dead to me. No pun intended. No pun intended.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah. Okay.
The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Hey guys, finding the perfect gift for the food lover in your life is easy. Thanks to Goldbelly. Goldbelly ships America's most iconic foods straight from world-famous restaurants right to your door. So if you want to treat someone to Joe's Stone Crab from Miami, Franklin Barbecue from Texas, or desserts from famous foodies like Ina Garten or Martha Stewart, Goldbelly has you covered with free shipping anywhere in the country. Just go to goldbelly.com and for a limited time, get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's promo code GIFT.
So that same day, Alton and Debra were very busy. They approached the home of 79-year-old Reverend Millard and 76-year-old Catherine Gay in Dayton, Ohio. Alton and Debra befriended the Gays and rented a room at their home from July 7th to July 9th, at which point they attended religious services with the couple in Lockwood.
Jeez.
On July 10th, the Gays drove Alton and Debra to Cincinnati and dropped them off.
Wait, really?
That's it. You may be wondering what the couple was doing between July 10th and July 17th when they left the Gays. Well, they were busy. On July 11th, the day after the Gays dropped the couple off in Cincinnati, Alton and Debra crossed paths with 15-year-old Tani Story.
Oh, no.
Tani had left her home that morning around 10 a.m. She was seen at 11:45 at junior high by a teacher. Around 5 to 6, a classmate saw Tani on the corner of May and Morgan Street in Cincinnati with a man the classmate identified as Alton and a woman. By that time, Tani was already due home, and around 4:30, her mother called the police and reported her missing, but it was too late. Tani's body was found on July 19th in an abandoned building on May Street by a real estate agent. Her body was badly decomposed, but they were able to identify her body by fingerprints as well as the clothing and accessories she had been wearing the day she disappeared.
It's a parent's worst nightmare.
I know. Her cause of death was strangulation, and under her body, authorities recovered a bracelet belonging to Virginia Temple, who was murdered by Alton and Debra a few weeks earlier.
So there's just no question of guilt here. They just have to actually get him.
Yes, 100% them. And there was also an envelope from the gay residence under Tani's body. So like just
here it is on a platter.
Breadcrumbs are being left. On July 12th, Alton was added to the FBI 10 most wanted list as a special edition.
Wow.
Well, they were like, can someone please find this guy?
Well, because this was all in 1984, right? And this was only between like the end of May and we're only in like mid-July, right? So that's a lot of people, and not just, I mean, it's a lot of people murdered, right? But it's a lot of people attacked.
A path of destruction.
God,
Horrifying. Horrifying.
And like you said, it's across states. It's absolutely no rhyme or reason. You don't know if they're going to murder you. I mean, geez. I wonder do you know, is there like news? I mean, it went on America's Most Wanted, but like, so they have his picture. They're like,
I think it was like, I think it was like all over the news.
Jeez. So I wonder if you, like, if they entered your home, if you're one of those people, you're like, oh shit. I wonder if they recognized him.
They'd be like, can I have a cup of sugar? I'd be like, no, thank you.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
But it's too widespread to like really generate, like but the Night Stalker was all in California and all like right there. Or no, was it Kemper? No, that was there's too many. But
who are we talking about?
Are you an owl?
Who?
The Night Stalker is who I was.
I'm an enunciating owl. Hoot. Okay. 2 days later, Alton and Debra were still on the hunt. On July 13th, Alton and Debra, without a vehicle, rode bicycles into Norwood, Ohio. Marlene and Harry Walters had a pop-up camper for sale, which was perfect for Alton and Debra. They went to the Walters' home around lunchtime to purchase the pop-up, or so they said, and the Walters were gracious hosts. Marlene offered the couple lemonade. When Harry went to go get the title for the camper, Alton followed and attacked Harry. When Marlene returned with the lemonade, Alton attacked her too. Marlene and Harry were forced in the basement. Harry was handcuffed and his feet tied, a rope placed around his neck. Marlene's hands and feet were bound by electrical extension cords. Harry survived the attack, but Marlene was not as lucky. The couple were ultimately found by their 19-year-old daughter, who returned home around 3:45 and found the house in disarray.
Oh my God.
The daughter attempted to cut the couple loose before running to get help from neighbors, telling them that her parents had been tied up and killed. Police found 2 bicycles outside of the home, which is how Alton and Debra got to their house. Authorities determined that Alton and Debra had taken the Walters' car, sunglasses, shoes, and money.
Wait, did Harry die?
Harry survived.
Oh, he did. Okay, yes. He did. But she
was like, yes,
just
my
assumed,
parents were tied up and killed. Yep. No, Harry survived.
Oh, but he lost his wife and she lost her mother.
Yes. In the meantime, Alton and Debra took the Walters' car to Lexington, Kentucky, where they abandoned the car. They're all over.
Yeah.
They got their next ride from 33-year-old Oline Carmichael, sort of. Together with their acquaintance, Thomas Harris, the 3 met up with Oline in a motel parking lot on July 16th, where they abducted him and shoved him into the trunk of his own car. They placed a telephone call to his wife demanding ransom, instructing his wife to take money to a gas station in Richmond, Kentucky. I was going to say Stashmond.
I prefer that, actually.
The trio never showed for the money, but instead headed to Dayton, Ohio, where they abandoned Oline's car with him still in the trunk. He was discovered and rescued after several hours.
Oh, I thought you were going to say days, because you could survive for a couple days, but that would be awful. What an awful way to die that would be.
In the trunk of your own car?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't even have to be your car, any trunk.
There's a lot of shitty ways to die. I think there's a show about that.
Yeah, that's true. And Yep.
Alton and Debra then headed back to the gay residence. Remember
no.
them? Yeah, the ones that took him to church and then just dropped him off. They went back.
Where they stayed there for a couple days, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember they were missing from July 10th through the 17th. They went on their little spree. Well, a week later, on July 17th, Alton and Debra returned to the gay home. Miller told Alton and Debra that he knew who they were when they answered the door. Alton said, "Well, honey, I guess we'll have to burn them." Both brandished handguns and a scuffle ensued. Alton pistol whipped Millard before the pair were tied up by Alton and Debra. The couple attempted to strangle Catherine, but they stopped before she lost consciousness.
Oh my God.
The Reverend asked Alton why he would do this, and Coleman responded, "I'm not going to kill you, but we generally kills them where we go." Alton then attempted to shoot Catherine, but his gun malfunctioned. Alton and Debra gave up, stole money, stole the gay's car, and fled.
My mouth is hanging
so
open.
Lucky.
Yes.
Like, they literally survived an encounter with them twice.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Clothing from Virginia Temple was found in the gay home by authorities after the fact.
Crazy.
Just everywhere. They're just leaving breadcrumbs.
Literally.
Alton and Debra headed from Ohio to Indiana. Along the way, they stole another automobile and took another life. On July 19th, 1984, the body of 79-year-old Eugene Scott was found in a ditch outside of Indianapolis. He'd been shot 4 times with a .38 caliber pistol and stabbed repeatedly.
Jeez. Hopefully shot and killed first, but I doubt it.
Right, before he was stabbed.
Yep. Oh.
Alton and Debra made their way to Evanston, Illinois, and arrived July 20th, 1984. They ditched Eugene's car and headed into town on foot. As they were walking, Alton was recognized by one of his childhood friends who called the police to report him.
This is answering my question on, like, it definitely was all over the news, at least in this area.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And this is sort of where it started for them, too. Alton and Debra were sitting on bleachers across from basketball courts in Mason Park when 5 officers descended upon them. Alton went quietly despite the fact that he had a long knife in his boot and a 5-shot .38 caliber pistol on him. Which is crazy because normally people are like, "I'm not going back. I'm not going down without a fight." No, he was just like,
the whole thing is weird. And it makes me wonder, like, back to like his obsession with the younger girls because they're pure. Like, I wonder if there's something also about, like, maybe he, like, because the other murderers or whomever that we've talked about that are similar to that, it's because they, like, were literally afraid of older women or whatever. Right. And I wonder if there's something related to, like, was he going after, because he actually went after, well, there's some people in middle age too, but
they ranged from like 7 to 79.
But they did, like, was he going for people he thought he could overpower? You know, and
Maybe.
then so once the cops came, he was like, well, shit, I can't overpower them. I don't know. I'm trying to get in the psychology of it, but I'm not a psychologist. So.
I took it as I just take it as random, like a complete spree. You know, I don't know enough about, obviously, his thought process as it went by, but it just seemed like it was anybody, anywhere, at any time. Yeah. Like whatever was convenient for them,
but
basically.
Like, why he just gave up for the cops, I mean, like...
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were 5 of them, too. Yeah. Alton, no, I already said that. Police knew that Alton and Debra were smooth talkers. Alton was laughing and joking with officers, trying to talk his way out of it. Wow. But they said they were pretty sure they knew who they were dealing with.
Yeah.
Come to find out, Alton thought he was actually untouchable because he had a little magic on his side. He thought that if he kept powder from his grandma in his shoes, he would never get caught.
I mean, it was true for a month and a half.
Yeah, for a while. Guess that didn't work out for him in the end.
No, buddy.
Yeah. Alton and Debra were initially charged with carrying a concealed weapon until they were positively ID'd through their fingerprints. They were like, we're pretty sure we know who you are.
We'll just get you on something so we can hold you, which is good.
Correct.
So you don't go out and murder and attack more people.
Yes. After they were ID'd, the weapon charges were dropped so that Alton and Debra could be prosecuted on the more serious federal charges.
Yes.
They were transferred into the custody of the Chicago FBI. Their 53-day spree across 4 states came to an end, taking the lives of 8 people in the meantime.
That's insane. Mm-hmm. And it's actually 53 days is a lot longer than I even thought. It like really seemed, it was just like a day after day they were attacking people. Wow.
Well, it kind of is only like a month and a half though.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were right the first time, right?
Yeah.
That math is mathin'.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alton and Debra were both charged with federal kidnapping for the abduction of Oline Carmichael. Words are getting hard.
I know. We're nearing the end, people. Hard. You know how it goes.
Okay. On September 4th, 1984, Alton was ordered for a competency hearing to determine if he could stand trial on the federal kidnapping charges.
Would they think he was like just insane because of what he did?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Like, you must be insane if you did all of this.
Right. And I don't know if it like came up that he had a shitty childhood at that point, but I don't know. Maybe they were just checking. But he was competent.
Yep.
And both Alton and Debra were tried for the charges, convicted on November 26th, and they were sentenced to 20 years. After the feds had their turn, it was decided amongst the powers to be that Ohio would take the first crack at trying the modern day Bonnie and Clyde.
Because they have like 4 different
All
states or
these
whatever.
states.
Yeah. Yep. Didn't even think about that.
Yep. At the end of 1984, Alton was charged with aggravated murder for the death of Tawny Story, with the state pursuing the death penalty. A jury found him guilty as charged, and after the mitigation hearing 1 day later, the jury recommended death. The recommendation was accepted by the court, and on June 24th, 1985, Alton was sentenced to death for Tawny's death. Ohio wasn't messing around. One death sentence wasn't enough. Alton was also charged, convicted, and sentenced to death for the aggravated murder of Marlene Walters. He appealed both convictions and death sentences to the appellate courts, which affirmed the trial court decisions. Alton then exhausted his state and federal habeas appeals, and then several additional appeals with the hope of delaying his execution.
I have a question.
Let me finish my sentence.
I didn't. You looked up. I thought you were. Sorry.
I held my paper up to block Laura's face. He had no success in changing his fate. Yes, Laura.
My question for Marina's legal corner is, so if he had 2 death sentences.
Correct.
And he was able to overturn one, he could have potentially not overturned the other, and that's the benefit of doing both of them.
Yeah, and that's so funny because that's exactly what happened. But we'll get to that.
I was like, you have a lot of pages left for like how certain.
Yeah, we'll get to that. There was a lot of appeal. There were a lot of appeals.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah, but that's funny that you asked that. Yes, 100%. That's exactly what happened.
Wow. I feel so smart.
After his Ohio sentencing, the court remanded Alton back to the custody of the feds, where he had been serving the 20-year sentence for the Carmichael kidnapping. But he would soon answer for his crimes in Indiana. I'm trying to go like sort of chronologically, like how it went. Before we get there, I don't want to leave Debra out. Debra had been tried separately from Alton, convicted, and was also sentenced to death. I'm
actually surprised about that, like that she got sentenced to death versus like, because she got, I assume, first-degree murder then.
I'm sure she was charged with the same. I mean, she was complicit in all of this.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I thought maybe it would be like slightly less, or she for sure was a part of it. It's just,
Yeah.
Anyway. I guess it depends on how it all happened.
And I think maybe they couldn't prove who murdered who, so I think they both are equally culpable. If you can't, instead of them both getting off because you can't prove who murdered it, I think instead the assumption is that they both
did murder
did
people, so it's both of you.
They both, 100%. So during her sentencing phase, she allegedly sent a note to the judge that said, "I killed the bitch and I don't give a damn. I had fun out of it."
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, you can get the death sentence, actually.
Debra.
So fuck off.
Debra also appealed her conviction and sentence, and she had more success than Alton. Eventually, Debra's death sentence was commuted to life in prison based upon the fact that they deemed she was intellectually disabled.
Oh.
Her IQ at the age of 12 was 59.
Oh, no.
And it was only 74 at the time of her appeals, which is considered well below average.
Yes. Yep.
She'd also been diagnosed with dependent personality disorder, which also provides some insight into her attachment to Alton.
Totally, yeah.
She was sentenced to 140 years in prison, in addition to life without parole for the murders of Marlene Walters and Tawny Story.
Okay, good. So she's not going anywhere?
Nope, she's going to stay in jail.
Yep.
This episode is brought to you by Pluto TV. Are you looking for your next case? Pluto TV has all your favorite crime dramas streaming for free, which means suspicion is free, with countless cases to crack. Watch CSI, Criminal Minds, NCIS, Blue Bloods, Tracker, FBI, and SWAT, all for free from all your favorite devices. Feel the free. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
Faraday presenta Ojos con Alergia y Picazón contra el jardinero. Y el ganador es Faraday Extra Fuerte. Para aliviar la picazón de los ojos por alergia, actúa más rápido y supera a Claritin y Flonase aún a las 24 horas. Faraday, adelante.
On April 11th, 1986, Alton was found guilty of murder, attempted murder, and child molestation for his attack on Tamika Turks and Annie Hillard in Indiana. Following the jury's recommendation, Alton was handed another death sentence. It took the jury less than 2 hours to make the recommendation.
Wow.
Alton appealed, and the Supreme Court of Indiana affirmed on direct appeal. Alton then sought post-conviction relief for, among other things, ineffective assistance of counsel. The court denied his request for relief, which Alton appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Wow.
They took the case. I'm sorry. He appealed to I'm lying. He appealed to the Supreme Court of Indiana. They upheld the denial, and then he appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they actually took the case and remanded it back to the Indiana Supreme Court for reconsideration in light of a case called Williams v. Taylor, which the court had recently decided. Wow. Feel free to ask me questions if you're like.
Well, I'm waiting for the end of your sentence.
Okay.
You know.
All right, let me give one more sentence.
Okay.
In Williams versus Taylor, the U.S. Supreme Court reversed the Virginia Supreme Court and vacated the defendant's death sentence because the defense counsel had failed to adequately investigate and present mitigating circumstances during the penalty phase of the trial.
Wow. I followed all that stuff.
Okay, so just a reminder for our gremlins, when there's a death penalty case, there's a guilt phase and the penalty phase. So you can be found guilty of the murder, but still not be sentenced to death if they find that there's enough mitigating circumstances to make it so that it doesn't warrant the death penalty.
Right. Yep.
So basically, the U.S. Supreme Court said that it is ineffective assistance of counsel. Like, it could change the outcome if a defense counsel doesn't adequately research and present mitigating circumstances during the penalty phase.
The only question I had was, obviously the U.S. Supreme Court can't take every case that's presented to it. So they get to select, like, how does that work?
They can only take cases that are decided on things other than state issues. So it has to be like a federal constitutional issue.
That makes sense.
And they can pick and choose, and they turn down the majority of cases.
That's what I would think.
It's a very small subset.
Because I would think everybody is trying to get it up to the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court.
I'm guessing that they look more closely at death penalty cases because that's, of national concern. Yeah, literally life and death. Which, as an aside, I just saw, and now I'm not going to remember the state, but I was just watching the news tonight, and there was a attorney general for the state that reviewed this death penalty case for a guy that was on death row, and he found in the file that the state knew that one of their witnesses was going to lie, and they put them on anyways, and the guy was convicted, and the attorney general for that state petitioned for the guy to get a new trial.
Oh my God.
And they denied it. So he joined the petition to the U.S. Supreme Court to get this guy a new trial. And they were like, well, do you believe in the death penalty? He's like, that is irrelevant. He goes, I believe in justice. He goes, and I think that guy is guilty of at least accessory to murder. But he wasn't sure that he was guilty of the murder. And that's why he was like, he deserves a new trial and his sentence should be looked at. And they were like, well, don't you think, though, that some people have been put to death, if they're innocent? And he said, not on my watch. And I was like, what and he's a Republican and he's running for governor. And he was like, it might not be a popular stance that I'm taking. He goes, but I believe in justice. And I was like, I'm in love with you, sir.
Yeah, because that's
and now
the
I can't
point.
even remember his name.
I know.
But it was amazing.
That is the point of it.
I know.
That's the point.
I was like, everyone should be like you. Yeah. And my husband made the point that if those prosecutors are still alive, they should be prosecuted for tampering with evidence like that.
Yes.
Because that's dirty shit.
Yep.
And I don't like that.
And it's somebody's life at stake.
It's
for however bad, even in this scenario where it's like, it seems like cut and dried, like there is a reason. We always say this. There's a reason, there's due process.
Yes.
Because you have to follow it.
Yes.
Even when it seems super obvious. I mean, we look at the Karen Reed case. It feels really obvious to one group, feels really obvious to another group. You have to follow the process.
Right. And that's why people used to be like, how could you be a defense attorney? How could you represent these people? And I said, if the state has enough evidence to prove their burden and to do it in a way that is legal, I can't win anyways. And I shouldn't.
Exactly.
But if you are messing with the process, you're going to end up convicting someone innocent. So my job is to make sure that that doesn't happen and to hold the state to their proof.
Yep. Amen.
Amen.
I have goosebumps.
Woo!
America.
I'll get off my soapbox now. So the Indiana Supreme Court had to go back and look at Alton's case. So they were tasked with reconsidering the case in light of the Williams versus Taylor decision. Concerning the ineffective assistance of counsel, Alton had argued that his lawyer was ineffective for failing to present potentially mitigating evidence related to his troubled childhood environment, a mental illness, allegedly organic brain dysfunction, and his alleged borderline personality disorder and probable manic depressive psychosis.
That's a fun phrase, the allegedly organic brain.
Maybe alleged organic brain dysfunction. But either way, he was alleging that he had organic brain dysfunction.
I don't even know what that means.
I think it's scientific. I did not Google it.
That's okay.
So the Indiana Supreme Court noted that the habeas court had actually considered extensive evidence on both sides of the aisle concerning Alton's brain dysfunction and his personality disorders.
Allegedly.
The alleged brain disorders. And the court concluded that he didn't suffer from any of these disorders.
Wow.
So in essence, his trial attorney didn't give that information to the jury at his original trial, but that information was later presented to the court. They didn't find that it was...
So it was not mitigating or whatever.
Yeah, what's the word I'm looking for? Convincing. They didn't find it convincing, so they said it wasn't ineffective assistance of counsel for his trial counsel failing to raise that issue. So the Indiana court ultimately determined that Alton wasn't prejudiced for that piece of it.
Yep.
But then they also had to look at Alton's troubled childhood because he didn't present that either. So there were no findings of fact from the habeas court concerning Alton's childhood, but he did testify that his mother was a gambler and a sex worker who starved, beat, and hustled her children. He spent most of his childhood in squalor with a grandmother who practiced voodoo. His grandmother verbally and physically assaulted him, and he was known as Pissy, all of that.
Yep.
The Indiana Supreme Court considered that evidence, but noted that it has consistently held that a difficult childhood carries little mitigating weight. And given that there were numerous compelling aggravators in Alton's case, the court was unconvinced that the sentencing result would have been any different.
Good. Which is essentially where we fall, which is like, yeah, that's tragic and that's shitty, but it doesn't excuse you from raping and murdering people. You can't do that.
You know what's crazy, though? That is one of those scenarios, though, where these appellate courts kind of have the discretion to make decisions. They could have gone back and looked at that and been like, his childhood was horrendous. The jury probably should have heard it, and we can't say for certain that it wouldn't have swayed them. They easily could have come out in that direction.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised they didn't. Again, my opinion is that it's not worth it. It doesn't discount the rest of it, but...
And that could vary. That again could vary from state to state depending on their case law concerning mitigating childhood trauma.
Wow.
Crazy. I love appellate law. Debra Brown was also tried in Indiana. She'd been tried separately and convicted of the murder of Tamika Turks. She too was sentenced to death. She too pursued direct and habeas appeals unsuccessfully. In 2018, however, the Indiana prosecutors dropped their pursuit of the death penalty based upon Debra's intellectual disability. She had been the only female in Indiana on death row at the time.
Wait, didn't you say that already about her?
Nope, that was Ohio.
Oh,
this is Indiana.
That's right. Multi-state. Okay.
Multi-state, multi-death sentences.
Got it.
Yep. And now because Debra had committed her crimes before life without parole was a sentencing option in Indiana, she was resentenced to the maximum sentences amounting to 140 years to be served consecutively with her two sentences of life without parole in Ohio. So she's like really in jail.
Yeah.
Like really very much in jail.
Conclusively.
Yes. I conclusively concluded that she's in jail. Moving on to Illinois, Alton was charged in Illinois with murder and aggravating kidnapping for Vernita Wheat. Alton represented himself, which I would say that's a bad idea, but he's already facing 3 life sentences. So like, does
might
it
as
really
well give it a try?
You know, I've always wanted to be a lawyer, so now's my chance. And I said he'd already been sentenced to death. So like, what's the matter?
Yep.
Shockingly, he was found guilty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a jury recommended death. Yeah. If you could believe it.
They don't get to know all the other stuff though, right? Like, and this was something you had taught us and that I don't remember, but like, are they able to know that he has been sentenced elsewhere in other states for similar crimes?
I think in this situation he would, because it shows his MO and it's sort of all connected. It's like the prior bad acts,
right?
But
that's
like
the thing.
In this situation, yes, it's close enough in time, and they're all connected and everything.
I'm feeling as though I wouldn't have passed the bar.
That's really
I'm not remembering any of the phrases.
I don't think I could pass the bar again in this moment. Like if I went to take it right now, I don't think I could pass it.
It's like a driver's test. Like, do you think you could pass a written driver's test right now? Probably not, right? I don't know, 500 feet behind the fire truck.
Oh, I don't know.
Exactly.
500 feet is that one car length or 600? Because I don't know distances anyways. So,
So the answer is no, you would not pass.
I do still remember from driver's ed, though, that you shouldn't merge into a lane until you can see the car that's already there. Like both of their headlights in your rearview mirror.
Okay.
Just
thank you. You get that one right.
You're welcome. Listen, learn, and stay alive.
In America, though, because the laws might be different elsewhere, the driving laws.
And they probably drive better.
I don't think anyone drives well anywhere.
True.
That's my assessment. Okay.
That's sort of my job now, is to watch people drive shitty and cause accidents.
That's true.
So, the jury found that there were no mitigating factors sufficient to preclude a sentence of death. And on top of that, he was sentenced to 15 years for the aggravated kidnapping.
Okay.
Alton exhausted his state direct and habeas appeals with no success. He then petitioned the federal courts for habeas relief. Those appeals were also denied. So Ohio started it, and they would be the state to end it. But Alton wasn't going down without a fight. Now, with death sentences, there's just more appeals that are open to these individuals. I don't even know like the full extent of the process because I didn't deal with them, but there's a lot of appeals.
Yes.
In 2001, Alton appealed to the Sixth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals, challenging the denial of his habeas corpus petition and the lifting of his stay of execution in the murder involving Tawny Story. One of his key arguments was that his trial counsel had been ineffective, specifically for failing, again, to present mitigating evidence during the penalty phase of his trial. You're sensing a pattern here.
I mean, what else can you say?
Right.
Like, he can't take the I didn't murder them side.
Right.
Yeah, he has that's all he has to throw at it.
I did it, but even though I did it, So this time the court agreed.
Oh.
It found that Alton's legal representation had been deficient, particularly in failing to investigate and introduce evidence that might have influenced the jury's sentencing decision. Like I said, the other courts can come out in different ways.
Did he have a public defender? Do you know? I'm guessing yes, because I feel like he didn't have any money he hadn't
I think
stolen.
it was a public defender, and he had the same attorney in both of his Ohio cases.
Fascinating.
Yep. The court concluded that had the jury heard that mitigating evidence, the outcome could have been different, which is what I said about Illinois. While his conviction for Story's murder remained intact, the Sixth Circuit vacated his death sentence in that case. However, Alton still faced execution for the separate murder, that of Marlene Walters, which was also in Ohio.
Almost like, don't murder people, but also don't murder multiple people across multiple states, because you're just giving them lots of opportunities.
Yes, it's going to be really hard to challenge all of those sentences.
So listen, learn, and only murder one person.
In one state.
In one state. Well, it would be hard to murder, one person in 2 states. I'm just saying.
You drag them across the border. Anyways.
Okay.
So Alton was scheduled to be executed on April 26, 2002. In that case, the court had previously upheld his death sentence. Alton's attorneys petitioned the U.S. Supreme Court to review the Walters ruling, arguing that both cases were in the same state and they involved the same 2 defense attorneys. And they contended that it was inconsistent to overturn the death sentence in one case due to ineffective counsel while allowing the sentence in the other case to stand.
I do support that. Risky, though, because what if they go the wrong way? Like, what if they're like, what, you're
let's
right.
reinstate the other. Yeah.
Can you do that? Can that happen? Oh, then not risky.
No, because that one case it was only the one case that was being appealed.
Okay.
Like, they're separate cases. He filed another petition for habeas corpus with the Supreme Court. I know, Finny, it's very upsetting. I know. A last-ditch effort for a stay of execution. Alton argued that the state improperly... Wait, hang on. Oh, anyways, the Supreme Court denied that case. They disagreed. I didn't include the conclusion, and I went on to another. So anyways, they didn't take the case.
Okay.
He filed another petition for habeas corpus with the Supreme Court, which was a last-ditch effort for a stay of execution. Alton argued that the state improperly removed... Sorry, I've got distracted. Teddy has Finny by the neck.
Yeah, just holding on to him with his teeth. Cats, man.
Alton argued that the state improperly removed 9 of the 12 black prospective jurors by means of peremptory challenges, and he challenged whether there was purposeful discrimination in the jury selection. The Supreme Court noted that habeas relief was inappropriate because Alton could have raised that issue on direct appeal, and they denied his request 2 days later. Alton was out of time and out of appeals.
Yeah, nice try, dude.
I'm dying laughing that I didn't even include the punchline to that original.
That's okay.
I'm like, it was incredibly inconsistent and crazy. Anyways, moving on.
What do you think happened?
For his last meal, Alton ordered a well-done filet mignon. Gross.
Why?
I don't know, because he was truly evil.
Yeah. Yes.
It was a filet mignon smothered with mushrooms. Colby would be very upset about
she'd be
this.
so mad. She'd be so upset.
She'd be like
another death sentence.
She's like, I'd rather die than eat
Kill
this
him right
filet
now.
mignon. He also had fried chicken breasts, a salad with French dressing, sweet potato pie top with whipped cream, French fries, collard greens, onion rings, cornbread, broccoli with melted cheese, biscuits, gravy, and cherry Coke.
I mean, yeah, go for it. That sounds great.
And then,
Yep.
His final words were Psalm 23, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leadeth me to green pastures."
I'm not sure that's where you're going, my friend. I don't think so. No.
So many victims of Alton's crime spree were present at his execution that the prison had to set up a closed-circuit viewing venue outside of the building. Wow. He was executed by lethal injection on April 26, 2002, and Debra Brown is still serving her conclusive jail sentences and is currently, she's only 62 years old.
That's some justice.
I mean, that's how time works, but I feel like she should be older, when we talk about these cases.
Yeah, no, I agree. And she's got a long way to go. Mm-hmm. Wild.
So that is Alton Coleman and Debra Brown.
Wow, what horrible, horrible people.
Yep.
Jeez.
And they had horrible stories and it ended horribly.
Yeah, I don't I don't even feel satisfied by the end of this. I want it to not have happened.
I wish that they had just kept him after he raped Shalendra, and then maybe he would have gotten over it. Like maybe he wouldn't have met Debra, and maybe it just wouldn't have shaken out the way that it did,
Jeez. Anyways, thanks for that misery.
You are so welcome. And if you're enjoying listening to Grimm, which Laura never is, please rate and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts to make sure you don't miss any episodes. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, make our day by leaving us a written review, or you can leave us a fun comment on Spotify. We love those too.
We try to respond usually, but it's hysterical because it's one app between the two of us. Yes. And so it's whoever gets to read the comment first. And, I'll see it come in and I'm like, damn, she read it first because I don't know where it went.
Yes. And sometimes I'll go back and scroll them and be like, that was a nice comment. I never even saw that. Nice. But we're one person. So, I'll get the information later from some sort of brain dump. It's fine.
Transmission.
With the brain, use your brain science to do that. Yeah. Oh, the brain science. You can find our page on Facebook by searching Grimm, a True Crime Podcast. If you want to subscribe to our Patreon, you can go to Patreon and search Grimm, a True Crime Podcast. If subscriptions aren't your thing, that's totally cool. You can buy us a coffee/wine/Celsius at buymeacoffee.com/Grimm Crime Podcast. If you donate $5 or more, we'll send the first 200 donors a 4-inch Grimm die cut sticker, which is pretty sweet. Follow us on Instagram at Grimm Crime Podcast for information on future episodes and case photos, which I am up to date on them. Thank you very much. If you want to send us a case suggestion or just say hi, you can email us at grimmcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Listen, learn, and stay alive until next time, because the future is grim.